All right, guys. We are going to start with our first topic of EIS, and that is basically business process automation. Okay. So in the previous session, in the introductory session, we discussed about what EIS is all about. Rather, I should say, when we try to integrate the different functions of an organization into one system, we can call such system as enterprise information system. So the key word that you have to understand when I say EIS is that it will be integrated. The systems, the functions of the organization will be integrated. Okay. So this is the subject, this is the topic, or rather I should say EIS is basically we have to cover different types of EIS in our syllabus. Okay, we are going to learn about different systems, but then we have a topic here on business process automation. Okay, so why do we first have to cover the topic of business process and then automation? Okay, this chapter number 1A, which I am going to take today, we are going to actually divide it into two parts. First, we are just going to understand what business processes are, and then we are going to talk about the automation of the processes. We are going to then discuss about the automation of the processes. Okay, but then, sir, this is EIS. We have to learn about different systems. So why are we studying about the processes? Okay, so just for your understanding, please remember that when we implement any EIS in organization, when we are trying to implement a software, an EIS in an organization, the organizations, they need to identify their processes. They need to know, okay, these are the processes that have to be, now taken care by EIS. So they need to identify their processes and then automate it, right? So for example, now if I am trying to, let's say, implement an EIS in the organization, I want to automate my processes. Okay, I want to first understand my processes and then perhaps I'm going to automate the same. All right. So let's take an example that if I want to come up with an EIS which caters to, let's say, my accounting and finance. Okay, so I need to first understand that how the accounting process takes place in the organization, and then I'm going to automate it so that now accounting can be done in the systems, right? So why are we studying about the processes? This is the reason, guys. Okay, we are going to study about a lot of processes in the entire syllabus, right? In this particular chapter, we are going to understand the basics, that what is a business process, and then we are going to cover some aspects of different processes like purchase, like sales, like recruiting human resource in the organization. All these are processes. Okay, so we are going to understand about those processes in some portions of chapter 1, and then we are also going to understand the different processes of a bank so that you are able to understand CBS better. So we are going to learn about more processes in chapter number 5. But again, why are we studying about processes? Because when an organization implements EIS, they need to know that, okay, these are the processes that are there in the organization, and then they automate it and ultimately incorporate it in their EIS. All right, so let us start. What is business process? Okay, the basics portion. So business process, let's go with the definition first. It says a business process is a prescribed sequence of work step. It is prescribed sequence of work step. Prescribed sequence of work step. It has to be prescribed. Okay, we cannot just initiate any processes in any manner whatsoever we want. Okay, so it is prescribed sequence of work steps which has to be performed to produce desired result in the organization. Okay, now if a person, let's talk about the sales process. Okay, so if we talk about the sales process, it cannot happen that generally what happens in every organization, there is a proper process procedure defined. Okay, so if I talk about the sales process, let's say, so first I'm going to, let's say, take up the orders from the customer, then I'm going to check availability of the particular let's say product. Okay, then perhaps if the order is there, I'm going to dispatch the same. Along with the dispatch, let's say I'm going to send them the invoice, then they are going to pay me the payment. I'm going to then reconcile. So this is a step-by-step process, right? I just cannot initiate a sales process in the manner I want. Every organization, they have got their processes defined. Okay, so what is a business process? It is prescribed sequence. Please remember, key word that you have to understand here is it is prescribed sequence of work steps, okay, which has to be performed so that we are able to achieve a desired result in the organization. Okay, so again, a business process is a series of repeatable steps that needs to be carried out to realize a goal. Okay, what can be the examples of business processes? Let us understand now. Let's say onboarding a new employee. I join a company as a new, let's say, joinee. So there will be a process in the company, there will be a process in the organization of as to how they are going to, hire a new person. How, if they hire it, how are they going to make him understand what his work will be? How are they going to, let's say, train me? All this is basically defined. Okay, so we have a process for onboarding new employees, or let's say we have a process for shipping a product to a customer. We have a process of accounting in the organization. So every organization is subject to many processes. All right, so because we are studying EIS, we need to understand the processes, and then we are going to try to automate those processes. Okay, now again, if I take you, let me just quote few examples. Okay, this example, this was actually, I experienced this personally. Okay, so I share it almost in every session of mine. Okay, so it so happened that there's a client of mine, and is a good very renowned business person. Okay, and is into many different sectors, or let's say different businesses. All right, so I happened to visit his place once, and generally what happens whenever I visit his place, there is there's a person called as Gabbar there. Okay, he is the office boy. He takes care of he does all the peon work. He's a peon there, and whenever a guest comes, he basically comes up with a tray of water or maybe tea or coffee. He asks all this. Okay, so what happens is, generally I don't like tea or coffee. I don't take tea or coffee, but then in this particular office, whenever I go, I generally always try to have the tea there, because it's very, very I like the tea there. Okay, so Gabbar, he sees whenever I go to the office, he comes along and he knows what kind of tea I like, and he makes it and he presents it very beautifully, a cup of tea and some biscuits and some eatables, and he presents in a very wonderful manner. So one fine day what happened, I went to the office and I saw that Gabbar is not there. Okay, so the uncle, the client of mine, he is senior to me, very senior, so I call him uncle. Okay, so I asked him, where is Gabbar? I want to have the tea. Okay, so he told me, no, he has gone to his native place, and he's going to be back in a week's time. So I was somehow disappointed that I'm not going to get that tea which Gabbar used to make. Okay, which Gabbar used to prepare. So the uncle, somehow he got to know. He asked me, do you want that tea? You want to have tea? I was like, no, I'm fine. I generally don't like it as such, but Gabbar, he makes awesome tea, so I generally take it when he prepares it. Okay, so the uncle was like, don't worry, I'll arrange very similar tea for you, don't worry. Okay, so somehow he calls another person, and then he orders for a cup of tea for me. Okay, so I was just waiting and discussing few things with uncle, and meanwhile another person comes with a tray and a cup and some biscuits and all, in exactly similar fashion as Gabbar used to bring. Okay, and he brings and keeps it on the table. Okay, so and then I try the tea, and trust me, it was almost same as like Gabbar used to prepare. All right, so I was kind of shocked that how is this possible. Okay, so I straight away asked uncle, do you have a coffee or a tea making machine, because the taste is almost same. So uncle was like, no, we don't have any machine, but okay, I'll show you why this person was able to make similar tasting tea. Okay, so I went to the pantry area, the kitchen area with uncle, and I was shocked to see that the place, the counter where Gabbar used to prepare tea, there was a big chart paper there with all the steps to make a tea clearly written. Okay, so I read it. It was like, step 1, you have to take this much amount of water. Step 2, boil it for this much seconds. Step 3, put in some sugar or tea, whatever it is. Step by step, including the duration, was written. Okay, so I told uncle, what is this? Who has made it? So uncle told that I got it made and I pasted it here on the wall. I asked him why. He told me a very simple thing, that see Chandan, employees will come and go. Okay, and every time an employee comes, you cannot teach him to make tea or do it or any other process in the organization. So we have defined our process, and whosoever employee comes in as a new joinee, he simply has to follow the process. I was I should say surprised or shocked in appreciation for that uncle, that even for the small things in the organization, he has defined each and everything in so much of detail that it obviously, when he must have defined the tea making process for the first time, it must have been little time consuming, but that becomes an asset for him. So the employees will come and go, but the process will remain same. The new employee has to follow that process. Maybe on the first day the new peon came in, the first day was not able to prepare the same, but yes, if you follow those instructions diligently, you'll come out with the same taste almost. Okay, so I was shocked to see this, and every time I go to that uncle, there is a new learning. He teaches something or the other in his own ways. Okay, and one more instance with that same uncle. Okay, so I happened to go to his office, and then we had plans that I will be going to his place to have lunch. Okay, it was lunch or dinner, I'm not able to recall exactly. So again, what happened, that the moment we got down from the office, his car was waiting with the driver. Okay, so as soon as we got closer to the car, the driver got down and he kind of opened the doors for both of us to comfortably sit in. Okay, and then we sat, and he ensured that I get the best seat. We sat, and then he drove a bit, and then I saw that he's lowering down the windows. Okay, he lowered down the windows, and he switch on the fan, not the AC, blower basically. He switched on the blower. So I was a bit happy that okay, he's trying to first, generally this is how you should switch on your AC. First try to blow out the air that is already in, and then you generally again you put you can switch on the AC. So he did that. Okay, and after a while, again, like after a minute or so, he offered me a small bottle of water. That's if you want to have water. I was really very surprised that how well mannered and behaved and with full of etiquette this driver is. So the moment we got down at uncle's place again, I asked him, how old is this driver? I mean, how long has he been serving you? So again, I was really shocked to I was shocked on what uncle answered. Uncle told me that he's a new joinee and he has joined yesterday only. So I was like, how does he know so much that this is what he has to do? Again, uncle told me the same thing, that for the drivers also, they have this process, entirely written process, documented process. Okay, and in fact, the process, because drivers might not be very educated, so they made the process, they translated the process in their local language also, so that they're able to understand. Okay, so then I realized the importance of having processes in an organization. Generally, all the organizations, let's say the mid-sized small firms, they work, but then they don't have a defined process. Okay, and what happens every time, let's say there is a new joinee, or there is no standardized results because of the lack of processes. Okay, so if you have understood my example, you perhaps realize the importance of processes. And the examples which I gave you has got nothing to do with business, but then if you can just imagine the level of processes for tea making, and for the driver he has got the processes, so you can imagine that how wonderfully he must have made processes for his business, processes for his organization. Let it be, let's say, purchase, for sales, for marketing, for recruiting new people. He has got processes for everything. Okay, and once you make the processes, it becomes an asset for you, because it's just that the new people, the ones who come in, they just have to adhere to it. Okay, and the boss, the manager, he doesn't have to worry much about making them understand, and all. Everything is documented, right? So this is how important the business process can be, right? Anyway, so if I go by the definition again, what is business process? Just understand that it is prescribed sequence of work steps. So if in the tea making example, every step was prescribed. Okay, that this is step number 1, then you have to follow step number 2. Prescribed sequence of work step. Okay, to be performed. Why it has to be done? To be performed to achieve, or let's say to produce a desired result from the organization. So that the tea making step was mentioned there, so that the quality of tea is premium every time. It is it is standard every time, right? So prescribed sequence of work steps. All right, so what can be the examples? Now I told you onboarding new employee, shipping a product to a customer, accounting, generating invoice. All these are examples of business process. Okay, now in our material, in our study material, we will be discussing a lot of processes, but for the time being, we just have to understand one example. Okay, so we are going to cover example of business process pertaining to accounting. Yes, please tell me. Okay, I understand. Yes. Is everyone facing this problem? Okay, that is because I have just shifted to a new place and temporarily, and I am yet to get a high speed internet. So I think tomorrow it is going to be installed, and that is why you are facing this problem. But I think it is manageable because the topic as such is not very difficult. Okay, and just let me check the speed again. I'll just ensure if it is. Okay, the speed is decent enough. I think it is 22 Mbps now. Okay, all right. Is it okay now? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so we have to understand about accounting process. Okay, and there can be different business processes, but just for the sake of understanding, let us understand as an example what can be the accounting process in an organization. Okay, so it's very simple. Accounting or bookkeeping cycle begins when a transaction or financial event occurs and ends with its inclusion in the financial statement. So you all know this, that if we want to incorporate, if we want to if any transaction takes place in the organization, so it has to ultimately be reflected in the financial statement. So accounting cycle begins from the initiation of the transaction till the time it gets reflected in the financial statement. So what is the process? What is the sequence? Now let us try to understand this. Okay, so it says a typical life cycle of an accounting process may include the following task or activities. So what can be the task or activities? Let us understand. First is the source document. Now for example, if I purchase this AC for my business, okay, so how do you think am I going to make entry in my in the books of accounts? The vendor must have given me a purchase invoice, right? So on the basis of that invoice, I'll make entries in my account. So that invoice will act as my source document. So you have to have a source document on the basis of which you make entry in your system or in your account. So first we have source document. It can be an invoice, it can be any voucher, okay, it can be any document. So a document that captures data from transactions and events. So what is source document? If you want to write an example, let's say example invoice. It can be a voucher also. If you want to write, you can take a note of it. It can be voucher also. So a document that captures data from transactions and events. Now obviously I have the document, so I'm going to pass an entry for the purchase, maybe a journal. Okay, so then the journal entry is passed. Transactions are recorded in the journals from the source documents. Okay, and once the transactions are recorded in the journal, the next step, you all know this, is the entries will be posted to the ledger from the journal, okay, and once the ledger posting is done, then we are going to make the trial balance. Okay, so the trial balance, first we are going to have an unadjusted trial balance containing totals from all accounts. Okay, it will be unadjusted. Then we are going to pass on the necessary adjustments, and adjustment entries will be passed. Then it is going to become an adjusted trial balance. Okay, after the finalized post adjustments that we do, and then the closing entries, appropriate entries are passed to transfer accounts to the financial statements. Then the closing entries will be made, and then of course your financial statements will be ready. And when I say financial statements, I mean the balance sheet, the PL, the cash flow, or the fund flow statement. So this is how, guys, it's very, very simple, but yes, just a process of accounting which everyone follows. Okay, we start with the source document, then journal entry is made, then ledger posting is done, then the trial balance is made. Obviously the trial balance will be unadjusted one. You make the necessary adjustments, you pass on the closing entries, and then the financials are ready. When I say financials, I mean the balance sheet, the PL, the cash flow, etc. So this is just an accounting cycle. Okay, and trust me on this, I think this question was once asked in the exam also. Explain the accounting cycle. So such a bonus question it can be, and 5 marks bonus question. You just have to write the accounting sequence. I hope you all understand this. Okay, so very, very simple topic. All right, so again we are done with business process. Let me just repeat it for the last time. What is a business process? When I say business process, you have to understand it is prescribed sequence of work steps. Okay, prescribed sequence of work steps which has to be performed to achieve a desired result. And prescribed sequence, it can be anything. It can be accounting, it can be for sales, it can be for recruiting a new person, it can be, there can be processes for purchasing a fixed asset in the organization. So every business is subject to a lot of processes. Okay, and yes, so why are the processes made? So that we are able to achieve some objectives, some standardization. Okay, so this is business process. Okay, now one very important question that we have to understand in business process basic is, what are the different categories of business process? Okay, so very, very important question. What are the different categories of business process? All right, now it says we are going to cover 3 categories of business processes here. These are referred to as the categories. We have got 3 business categories. One is operational, second is support, and the third one is management process. You all can see the headings here. First is operational process, second is the support process, and the third one is management process. Okay, so we are going to cover each of the processes in detail now, and this is again a very important question from exams perspective. They are going to ask you, what is business process and what are the categories of business process? Okay, and you know what happens generally when this type of question is asked? Okay, it is generally asked in 2 parts. What is business process and what are the categories of business process? So what I've seen generally, what happens, because I've told you that categories of business process, it is an important topic. So most of you, you will be able to write what are the categories of business process. There are 3 categories. You will be able to write operational, you will be able to write support and management process. Okay, but then the first part, what is business process? What is business process? What happens is, the students generally, they tend to, when they answer such kind of questions, okay, they tend to leave 3-4 lines. Okay, and then they start with the categories of business processes are as follows. They are not able to recall the exact definition of business process, so they leave 3-4 lines and then they start with, these are the categories of business process, and they then go, 1 number is operational process, second is support process. Now what happens is, the question was asked in 2 parts. What is business process and what are the categories of business process? You have written the second portion really well. But when it comes to the first part, what is business process, because it is a definition, most of you generally don't give that much importance to it, and you don't basically try to remember the keywords. So what happens generally, you tend to leave it. Okay, and then once, let's say, during the exam, during the last, let's say, 25 minutes, 30 minutes in the exam, what happens generally, then some unusual power comes to you. Okay, in the last 30 minutes of the exam, whatever blanks that you have left, then the unusual power helps you in filling up the blanks. Okay, and then sometimes the power is so great that you have left only 2-3 lines there, but you are now able to recall the definition, let's say, which becomes of 6-7 lines. So now what happens, you write all crap answers there, and sometimes it so happens that you have left only 3 lines, but you now are able to recall 6 lines. Okay, so then you make your notes very the answer script very untidy. You just try to incorporate somehow, squeeze in the answer in those 3-4 lines, and then the presentation, it all goes haywire, completely, I should say, bad presentation. And then what happens, when the examiner who is checking your paper, he's obviously going to read the first portion, what is business process, wherein you have written, BCom type answers, like without any logic, or maybe you just have written stories. All right. The second part is no doubt correct, but in the first part, you were not able to recall the definition, so you write stories out there. But generally, the examiner is going to read the first part, and on the basis of that story, is going to now award you for the entire, question. So this generally happens with the student. So when I say that you are covering a topic of, let's say, categories of business process, don't ignore the definition part. Try to make it strong. Okay, so overall your answer should be Superb, excellent answer. Okay, this generally happens. That is why I thought I should tell you in the beginning of the sessions only that yes, whenever we are going to cover a definition also, you have to give it equal importance, right? Okay, now coming back to the topic, we are going to start with the three categories of business processes. What are the three categories? First is operational process, second is support process, and third is management process. Okay, now operational process, another name for operational process is basically primary process. Okay, now let us understand what operational processes are. Operational processes are those processes that actually create, add or deliver value for which customers are willing to pay. Those processes which helps in creating a value, which helps in delivering value to the customers, for which the customers pay you. Those processes will be called as operational processes. So examples. Okay, so what can be the examples? I have given certain examples here. So because of these processes, you develop, let's say, or manufacture a product, or you develop or make a product, then you sell it and you deliver the products and services. All those processes which helps in creating something, all those processes which basically convinces the customer and he buys a product and he pays for the product. Okay, so something which helps in creating something or delivering value to the customers. All these processes will come under the operational process. Now what can be the examples of operational processes can be, if you are manufacturing a product manufacturing, something related to manufacturing is obviously an operational process. Second, raw material refinement. Let's say you bring in raw material. Let's say we are into manufacturing something. Okay, so we bring in iron ore. Okay, then we refine it. Okay, we clean it and we refine it, and then we send it for, let's say, production. So this refinement also, because it is adding value ultimately to the final product, this is going to be termed as operational process. Okay, then we have sales ordering process. Obviously the customer will be able to have the product only when he places order for the sales, right? So sales order processing is also a operational process. Then customer services. Once he buys the product, let's say we have to do some installation, we have to provide him with certain services, then this is also a primary process. This is also an operational process. Or let's say the product that we have given, it malfunctions or something like this happens. Okay, so we have to give repair services. If it is already under the warranty, we might have to replace it or oblige with the warranty requirements. Okay, so all this thing, please remember just keyword, what is operational process. Examples you will be able to write it well in the exam, but what is operational process? Operational processes are those processes which help in creating, adding or delivering value for which the customers are willing to pay. When I say value, it means you are manufacturing something, you are providing something for which the customers are willing to pay us. This is operational process. Okay, and once we cover support process and management process, once you are able to understand each of the processes relatively, you are going to have a better understanding of each of them, right? So for the timing, we have just covered operational process. Now let us understand what support process means. Okay, alright, so support process, it clearly says the another name for support process is secondary process. Okay, so what are the support processes? It says support processes, clearly it is written here that they do not directly create products or services. It does not create products or services, but are necessary to facilitate or assist the execution of operational or management process. So please understand, support process are not delivering products directly or helping in creating the products directly, but as the name suggests, they actually help in operational process as well as in management process, and hence the name is support process. Support processes, they do not create products or services directly, but they are important because they facilitate the execution of operational process. That means point number one, as well as the management process here. Okay, so now, because you have just covered operational process, let us see how support processes can assist the operational processes. Okay, so I am just going to read this example for the time being. It says examples of processes that support operational processes are supply procurements. Please understand this, supply procurements. Now, is product manufacturing, I want all of you to answer this, is product manufacturing an operational process? Yes or no? Is product yes, it is a manufacturing process, absolutely yes. But now let's say the entire production team is ready to manufacture, the laborers, they are waiting for the manufacturing to happen, but we don't get the raw materials in time, or maybe we did not order for the raw materials at all. So do you think we'll be able to produce the goods and give it to our customers in the stipulated time? Of course no. So in order for the manufacturing process to be executed really well, we need to procure the raw materials in time. We need to procure the right raw materials at the correct time, at the correct location. So this now can be termed as support process, because if you don't have the raw material at the right time, at the right place, your manufacturing is going to be hampered, right? So procurement of raw materials can be termed as support process. Similarly, it says inventory replenishment. Once you're, let's say finished goods, or maybe any inventory is out of, you are about to, it's going to be over, so you replenish it, okay? And machine maintenance. Let's say we are manufacturing something, okay, and the maintenance of our plant and machinery, it is a support process. We would never want that we are in, let's say, in the middle of manufacturing something and all of a sudden our machinery breaks down. Okay, so that is why the support process in the form of maintenance of machinery is basically a support process. It helps in effective manufacturing. So let's say maybe before we start with the production, there will be a routine checkup of the machine. Okay, this is a part of, let's say, preventive maintenance, so that during the course of manufacturing our machinery doesn't break down. Okay, so again, support process, example of support process for operational processes, these are certain examples with respect to, let's say, supply procurements, inventory replenishment, and machine maintenance. Okay, now I have told you this, that support process, okay, support process supports operational processes as well as management process. So we are going to understand this particular point, basically examples of processes that support management process, only after we cover management process. So first let us understand what management process is, and then we are going to understand how support processes support management process also, how secondary processes support management process also. Okay, so now before I take up the management process, I just want to ask you all, does support process help in, or let's say, does support process directly create the product or service? No, the answer is no. Okay, but do they assist in creation or manufacturing, or let's say delivering value to the customers? Yes. Okay, now so please understand, this can be asked in MCQ also, or maybe that support process, please remember they do not create value, they do not directly create value, but indirectly they help. Okay, now let us understand what management process is. Okay, it says management process provides means to measure and control quality and ensure the desired performance outcomes. So when I say management, it is all about, when I say management, it is all about establishing standards. Okay, and then comparing the actuals with the standards, whether we are working as per the standards or not. If there are any deviations, the management is going to take necessary corrective actions. Okay, so what is management process? Management process, basically, for anything, they set certain standards, then the actuals, whatever the employees are doing, they are going to measure the actuals and compare with the standards. If there is a variation, they are going to work on to reduce the variation, reduce the variability. Okay, so management process is all about measuring, it is all about controlling. Okay, it helps in making decisions. I told you, when management process, they are actually used for making decisions, controlling the variance. What is variance? What did I just tell you? What is variance? See, for any kind of process, or let's say I'll put it in a very simple manner, that for a particular task, this much budget was set. This was our standard, that we are going to spend this much amount. But okay, in actuals, it went up to this point. So the management is now going to analyze the variance, okay, analyze why there was overspending, or let's say why there was underspending. So this is variance. So their work is basically to make decisions, to control the variances. They would want everything to be as per the standards that has been set. So their work is to basically take or make decisions, control variances, and resolve any problems that comes during the daily functioning of the organization. So what is management function, guys? few keywords I'm just highlighting again. So the management, their work is to measure and control. You know this, right? Control and part and all. I think you must have covered this in your 12th standard also. The various functions of management: planning, organizing, leading, controlling. Okay, so what is controlling? Basically, they set something, and if it is not working as per their set standard, they are going to work on the variation. Why is there variation? They are going to control the variance. Okay, so again, keywords in management process is basically to measure, to control, to take or make decisions, to control variances, and then to resolve all kind of processes. Okay, again, a very important point here is, do you think that management processes will also do they help, or let's say, are management process directly involved in creating a product? What do you think? The answer is no. Okay, so like support process, a management process does not provide value directly for the customers. So it doesn't provide value directly for the customers. However, very important line, can be asked as MCQ also. However, it has a direct impact on the efficiency of an enterprise. Can be asked as an MCQ here. Please mark it. That management controls, management process, they have a direct impact on the efficiency of enterprise. Now, before I discuss this, what do you mean by efficiency? Can anyone answer this? What do you mean by efficiency? Absolutely, Krishan, you are absolutely right. Doing a particular job while using the minimum possible resources, not wasting our resources, doing something very optimally, I can call it as efficiency. Okay, so please understand this, that if management process, if we have proper management processes in place, okay, so generally the organization is going to work as per the standards. There will be less of variation. Even if there is variation, even there is a difference between actual and the standard, management is trying to is going to try to reduce the variation. So these management process, they directly impact on the efficiency of the enterprise. Now this can be asked as an MCQ. They are going to put this line, that which of the process or dash process has a direct impact on the efficiency of the enterprise, and they are going to name 3 options: operational, support, management, and or let's say all of the others, or let's say none of the others. So you have to choose management process. Why? Because it is very simple. You just use a concept that I have told you, that under management process they measure, they control, and if they are measuring something which is not as per their budget, it is not as per their standard, they try to resolve the issue, right? So management processes, they directly impact. Please mark this line. It has a direct impact on the efficiency of the enterprise. Okay, now what are the examples of management process? Let us understand. Internal communication, there has to be proper communication, there has to be proper planning, there has to be budgeting. All these are, budgeting and all is a tool that helps management in conducting the operations very efficiently and effectively. Okay, so these are certain examples. Now we have one more point to cover this portion. I told you this, I'm coming back to the support process, and I've told you this, that support processes support operational processes as well as the management process, right? So how does now support process, or let's say secondary process, they support the management process? We are going to cover a few examples here. Okay, so examples of processes that support management processes are generally administrative. Okay, so typically associated with finance, accounting, sales, or human resource. So all these functions that we have in the organization, okay, the finance, the accounting, the marketing, the sales, all these processes are actually helping in management, overall management to function very effectively and efficiently. So these are certain examples of support processes which are actually assisting the entire management. Okay, so please remember, generally guys, these processes are very administrative in nature. Okay, so with this guys, we are done with the 3 categories of business process. A really very important question, and for your understanding I have again summarized this into a chart here. You'll just go through it very quickly. Okay, so operational process, another name for it is primary process, and I've just mentioned it is most important process, and it helps to develop, sell and deliver. 3 words: develop, sell and deliver. This is a process which actually provides value to the customer directly. It will be better if I highlight this word again here, that these are the processes that provide value to the customers directly. An example can be manufacturing. Okay, now Second process is basically support process. The other name is secondary process. So I have just mentioned it in a very logical manner, that it supports both primary process as well as management process. How does it support primary process? Example can be raw material procurement. How does it support management function? Example can be that we have a finance department in the organization, we have an HR department in the organization. Okay, the key point to understand here is that these support process, they do not provide value to the customers directly. They do not provide value to the customers directly. Okay. And third portion, what are the management processes? So management process, it coordinates the activities of primary and support process. So coordination, coordination is required. When I talk about management, it is all about coordination. It is all about measuring. It is all about taking decisions, resolving issues and problems. Okay. So the three keywords that you need to keep in mind here is it helps in measuring, monitoring, and then controlling. Okay. So it ultimately helps in improving business processes. So when I say it helps in improving business processes, can I say that management processes directly impact the efficiency of the enterprise? Yes or no? Yes, can I say it in this way, that management process directly impact the efficiency of the enterprise, right? And again, same point here, that these two processes, the support process and the management process, they do not provide value to the customers directly. They do not provide value to the customers directly. It is only the operational process that provides value to the customers directly. Okay. So with this, we are done with the three categories of business processes. Yes, you had a doubt, please. Okay, Sanjay, yes, please go ahead. You were saying something. No, that is because you must have not allowed access to your camera. You need to give permission to, or you need to give access to everything that is being asked by the app, and then you will be able to see it, Sanjay. Okay, and the ones who are actually facing issues in the live classes, I can just request you that, okay, for the time being, for a day or two, you might opt for the recorded lectures, because I think that the issue might be from my end, because of because at the moment I don't have a very high speed internet connection, because I'm taking it from a temporary location, but in a day or two it is going to be installed. Okay. So for the ones who are having difficulties, I would request you to watch the recorded lectures. These will be uploaded tomorrow itself. All right. Okay. So yes. So we are done with the different categories of business, and yes, the ones who are going to watch it later, you can just pause it and you can take a note of it. And the ones who are watching it live, don't worry, I'm going to give you time at the end to take a note of all these notes. Okay, so don't worry about it. All right, just focus on understanding the concept first. All right, so we have just covered three different types of processes. Okay, now under the basics portion of business, we are still studying the basics of our business processes. So under the basics portion, we have covered the definition of business process. We have just covered one example of accounting. Okay, and then we have covered categories of business process. Okay, we have just one small topic left with respect to the basics of business process. So let us understand the point. Okay, you just covered the definition of business process. Now there is another definition that we need to understand, and the definition is business process management. This is a new term, and let me tell you guys very clearly that this business process management, this you'll not find in chapter number 1 of ICI material. This is a topic which is there in chapter number 2, but because it pertains to business process, I have just reorganized it and I have placed it in chapter number 1 itself. Okay, so that all the basics of business processes you are able to cover at one location. All right, again let me tell you that this is a topic that is there in chapter number 2 of your ICI material. Okay, but I feel that it is more relevant to study in chapter number 1 basic. Okay, so what is business process management? All right, so now we already know that business process is prescribed sequence of work steps that needs to be performed to achieve a desired objective or goal. But what is business process management? management now. So business process management refers to a systematic approach. Two words you have to understand. It is a systematic approach of what? Of analyzing and improving the business processes. So when I say BPM, in short, I will be calling it as BPM. So when I say BPM, it is basically a system wherein we analyze and then we try to improve our business processes. Okay, again, two words. What is BPM? It is a system. It is a systematic approach. It is an approach wherein we focus basically is on analyzing our existing processes and then we try to improve our business processes. Okay, and see guys, whenever we define a process, okay, improving something, making changes in the organization or coming up with better versions is it keeps on happening. Okay, so the more refinement you make in your processes, the better it is going to be for the organization. So when you do a BPM and you improve your processes, it is going to help you in achieving the 3 E's. Now, what are the 3 E's? Let us understand. Business process management helps an organization achieve 3 E's. What are the 3 E's? Namely, the effectiveness. Your organization will become more effective. It is going to be more efficient. And then economy. Economy is basically you are not going to indulge in wasteful expenditure. You are going to spend money very economically. Okay. And when I say efficient, it means you are going to achieve your objectives in an efficient manner. That means with optimum utilization of resources, no wastage of resources. And when I say effective means whatever we do, it helps in achieving the result. Okay, so in simple terms guys, if I want to just remove your confusion with respect to effectiveness and efficiency, simply put, if I say you order for a pizza, okay, you call and order for a pizza, and you get your food within 30 minutes as they have promised. Okay, you get your food within 30 minutes, but when you open the box, it is not the pizza that you have ordered, rather they have sent you pasta or some noodles. Okay, so now what has happened is the restaurant, probably they were efficient because they were able to deliver you within time, but they were not effective because they did not order what you were actually wanting, right? On the other hand, let's say that you order for a pizza and they bring you the pizza, you get the pizza, but you get the pizza after 4 hours. So in this case, what has happened? They are effective because they have helped you in achieving your whatever you wanted. But again, it has not happened in the stipulated time. So they are effective here, but they are not efficient. We would always want to be both. We would always want to be effective as well as efficient. So if only you receive a pizza within 30 minutes, then I'll say that the restaurant is effective and efficient, right? So when we do a BPM, we keep on trying, we keep trying to analyze our processes, improve our processes. And once we do this, it helps in, achieving the 3 E's. What are the 3 E's? Again, effectiveness, efficiency, and economy. Okay, done. Now again, they are not going to ask you what is BPM. If at all they ask, it is going to be, they are going to ask you 2 questions. What is BPM and what are the steps to manage a process? This is what they can ask. Okay, but the chances are very slim. This is not a very important part, but still, because it is there in our ICI material, we are going to do 100% coverage. Okay, so business process management, I've already told you. Now this can be a question that can be asked. What are the steps to manage a process? Okay, we know that under business process management, we are managing a process, right? So what are the steps that you should be taking to manage a process? Okay, a very simple 3-step process. What is the first process? The first step to manage a process is basically to define the process. The first task is to define it. Okay, I'm taking you back to that tea example. Okay, that uncle, he had made the entire step-by-step instruction was there to prepare tea, right? So he had defined each step in the process. So the first step, in order for you to manage a process, is to define it. You need to define the process in detail. You need to define each of the steps there in detail. So the first task to manage a process is to define it. And along with the definition, along with defining, we are going to define the roles and responsibilities also. For example, if there is a sales process, the first step is to take sales order. Who is going to take sales order? We are going to write the name of the person there. Okay. Second is check for raw material. Who is going to check for the inventory? The second person names come. Third, packing. Let's say we are going to pack the material. Okay, packing or staging. Okay, so the person responsible for it, the name will be written there. What I'm trying to tell you is we are learning how to manage a process. So the first step is basically define the process. Each step has to be defined along with, it says, this involves defining the steps in the process and mapping each of the steps to the roles involved in the process. Who is going to do what? This also has to be clearly mentioned. Okay, so first step, guys, is basically to define a process. Okay, now coming to the second point, for each of the steps that we have mentioned in the process, okay, we are going to find some performance measurements. Okay, so once the process is mapped and implemented, once the process is defined, that means once the process is defined, performance measures can be established. Performance measures has to be established, and establishing performance measurements creates a basis to improve the process. For example, when I say performance measurement, it can be anything. Okay, so this particular task, it has to be done within 3 minutes, let's say. So they have set a performance measurement and it has to be achieved within 3 minutes, because if there is a delay in this part of the process, the entire process will be delayed. So for each of the tasks in the process, we have to have performance measurement. Having these performance measurements, it helps the company to improve their processes. If they are seeing that, okay, in let's say in this particular task we are not able to accomplish it within, let's say, 3 minutes, then what will happen, that they are going to work upon it and they are going to try to improve it. So for each of the tasks there has to be some performance measurement. So what is the second step? You need to establish something called as performance targets or performance measures. Okay, all right. And third point, lastly, once our process is defined, once we know that, okay, these are the roles and responsibilities, we know the performance measurements. Okay, the third step is basically that each one, our organization structure should be such that each one understands their responsibility. Okay, and each one abides by the process. Okay, so that again taking you back to the example of the tea making process. Okay, so the process was so well defined with all the performance measurements. Okay, now anyone who joins in or who replaces Gabbar there, okay, he should be able to understand it, he should be able to implement it, right? So the third point is the organization setup, the organization hierarchy, the management levels should be such that it enables standardization of and adherence to the process. Our organization structure should be such that everyone in the organization adheres to the processes throughout the organization. And when everyone complies with these processes, the outcome is going to be a very standardized outcome. Okay, now I'll just give you one more example. Okay, I am right now in Jaipur. Let's say I want to have a burger in McDonald's. Okay, now in McDonald's, the process of making that burger is very well defined. Right, so if I order for Mac Aloo Tikki in Jaipur, and if I happen to have it, let's say, in Chennai also, the taste will it be more or less same? Yes or no? What do you have to say on this? Yes. Why? Because their process is so defined, everyone adheres to the process, and then the product which comes out, it is very standardized in nature. Standardized meaning that even if in Jaipur, if I have Mac Aloo Tikki, it is going to taste same if I have it in Chennai. Alright, so please understand, when adherence of processes basically ensures standardization, the product will be very standard in nature. Okay, so guys, we are done with the basics. Okay, this is a topic that you have to understand what is BPM. So just remember 2 words: analyze and improve. And what are the steps in BPM? 3 steps. First, define the process, establish performance measurements, and third, we should have such an organization setup that everyone in the organization adheres to all the processes. They comply with these processes. Okay, all right. So with this, guys, our basics of business process is over, and now in the next session, in the next portion, we are going to understand, having understood what business process is, we are going to understand how the business processes will be automated. Okay.